All right, we are recording. So, welcome to this year's Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards informational webinar. We've decided that we're going to put this on each year to give everybody a little bit of an insight if there's been any changes in the way that our application is, and then also just some frequently asked questions that we get quite a bit when filling out these nominations. This is our 40th year, so very excited about that. We've got a planning committee together to make it extra special, and we are excited to see lots and lots of very good quality nominations coming in for this year's awards. So I'm gonna go ahead. If you have any questions during the webinar, over on your right-hand side, there is the chat box. Everybody's muted upon entry to reduce the amount of background noise. But if for some reason you would like to ask your question verbally instead of through the chat, there is a raising hand feature, and you can raise your hand. It should be down at the bottom. You can do like reactions or raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I'll be watching that, and I can unmute you when we get to the question piece, the question and answer piece, and you can ask your question. But if you would just rather, if you would just rather send it in the chat box, I'll be watching that as well, and I can make sure to read that to Kathy, our speaker, for her to answer that question. Now, there is a drop down box where it's everyone, all panelists, just Kathy, or chat with an attendee. So I don't really see there being a need for you to chat with another attendee unless it's a friend that you just want to say hey to. But if you'll just make sure that everyone or all panelists is clicked for your questions, that way I'll be able to see that. Let's say here is the chat box. And that should be going to everyone so you can see where that is. So without further ado, I'm going to stop rambling and I'm going to give Kathy the presenter capabilities. Kathy is our the GESA queen, if you will. She's been putting on and organizing these awards for years and years and years, and she has got it down to a science. So if there's anybody that can give you some good information and insight on making a award-winning nomination, it is Kathy. And so without further ado, I'll pass it on over to you, Kathy.
Thanks, Caleb. Appreciate that introduction. Like Caleb said, I have been overseeing the Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards for now 20 years of the 40, so half of its life I've been part of this award program. So I know the answer, and if I don't know the answer, like anybody, I'll find the answer out for you. So thank you for that introduction, Caleb. Again, I am Kathy Galapa with the Office of Sustainable Practices. That is where the Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards is housed, in the Office of Sustainable Practices. We are going to cover a lot of pieces of the application, some nuances that might arise while you're applying for during the application period while you're in there trying to apply for it, and then some tips and tricks to kind of help you through the system, because like every application out there, and I mean application in both ways, like the actual application and then the application you're applying in, there's always particulars that the system likes moreover than another. So we're going to talk about those pieces and get all of your questions answered. And then if not, you're going to end up with my contact information at the end, and you'll be able to contact me and we can have a further dialogue if you need. So without further ado, we're going to get into the actual part of the program here. So just to kind of give a little bit of background, we do have a mission here at the Department of Environment Conservation. It is to help protect, improve the quality of our air, land, and water through regulatory system and education and outreach. We also help protect and promote through human health and safety, conserve and promote, a lot of promoting and protecting here with natural and cultural resources. And then we also provide a lot of outdoor recreational experiences through our Bureau of Conservation, which houses our state parks and all of our natural areas as well. So as you can see, we're wanting to do well, and to do well, we have to have people like you guys interested in helping us, because we're only a staff of I think 2,600 people, and there's a lot of Tennesseans that we need help from. So you guys help us do the mission every single day. And then these awards themselves actually show that we're actually doing the work of the mission. So we appreciate all of that you guys are doing. A little bit of background on the Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards program. Like Caleb said, we have entered into our 40th year, which is the Ruby anniversary. So we're going to kind of take that red theme along the year this year and celebrate its 40th year. And I have been part of that for 20 years. So I think it's a very fun time for celebrating these awards and hoping that we get a stellar batch of nominations this year. We always have great nominations. I just want more. So that way we have a lot more to see what's going on across the state. It started in 1986. The awards program recognizes outstanding achievements by individuals, businesses, organizations, educational institutions, agencies for their successful environmental projects and conservation measures in the state of Tennessee. We also encourage leadership by example through the awards winners. We do a lot of promoting winners, post winners. We share the news across many mechanisms and medias to help get the good work that's being done across the state out there. So that way other people can learn by example and not have to reinvent the wheel. As you can see, we have 72 counties that have won. And if you don't know, there's 95 counties in the state. So that leaves 23 counties that have not ever been presented a Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards. And you can also see there that we've had 645 winners representative in the history of the Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards of its 40 years. Now let's talk a little bit more about those counties that haven't won. I always like to talk about those particular counties because I know that there's work being done in those counties, but for some reason we don't get nominations. So if any of our 22 attendees online live in one of these counties or know a project that's happening, I really strongly encourage you to nominate them or let them know about the awards program and they can nominate themselves because nominations can be self-nominations. So you don't have to have somebody else nominate your project or program. You can do self-nominations. So this particular slide I just want to bring to light. This is more of a call to action. Help me recognize some of these counties. And of course, I'm not the one that does the judging. I say help me, but help me get nominations in these counties so we can see the full map of the Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards full of colors instead of having 23 white ones that don't have any winners in it. So this is your guys' call to action to help me with these 23 counties right here. So take note of this, screenshot this, whatever you have to do to help them get nominated and recognized. Because I know that there's good work going on in these counties. Excuse me. Now, this particular part of the presentation, I'm actually going to get into the meat of the application and all the things that are needed or eligibility required, all of those particulars. Like Caleb said at the beginning, this is all on the website. You can find all of this information on the Governor's Environmental Stewardship website, and Caleb's going to throw that link in the chat just in case somebody wants to go look at the page while we're going through this. You do have to have the project located in Tennessee to be eligible. The project or the fully implemented or finalized project needs to happen in the last 2 years. And this is something that we changed last year to open it up to the past 2 years, because there were some projects, for example, there were some projects that completed in 2025, but really you might not have data to help support that project or that nomination until this year. So we opened it to know that you can have a project completed in 2024, but really you're going to nominate for this award program because you got a bunch of data in 2025. So we opened up that kind of award period to where it's okay that it was fully implemented 2 years ago And we understand that you were using this past year to collect all of the data for the nomination. So, and we also have a lot of long-term projects that are out there, especially with our new category of transportation solutions. So some of those are really long-term projects. You do have to have, excuse me, a minimum of 3 years of exceptional environmental compliance within our department. And that needs to be done voluntarily, like you see on the next bullet where it says perform voluntarily. That's not a result of a federal or state mandate or an enforcement decree where we or the federal government have come in and said you have to do this. So we do want those to be we want them to be done voluntarily. We do ask that you have quantifiable data to support your nomination. And when we get into some of that supporting materials later in the webinar, I'll explain that a little bit more. We do also look to a 3-year window between wins for each category to be eligible for that category again. So for example, if you won in sustainable performance last year, so say the elephant sanctuary people are on the call. If you won last year in that category, you cannot nominate yourself back in that category for a 3-year window. Now, you can come back and nominate yourself into a different category and win in another category, but to win in that same category, you have to have a 3-year window. And then this comes at the very end of your submission, but winning applicants must agree to allow a summary of all of your accomplishments to be published. And that is done by you hitting submit at the end of your nomination application. So you actually submitting the application is you agreeing to your accomplishments being published. And all that means is press releases and all the things that we do social media wise with the winners when it comes to us announcing it. The most important part that I believe is to know what you need to prepare your package for your nomination. You will have to have a 2 to 4 sentences project description, which is part of the application. And we will go into each section of the application later in the webinar. So you'll see all of these broken out and what it kind of looks like. So I'm going to kind of high level it right now and then get into the descriptions more when we get to those particular parts. So you'll need 2 to 4 sentences to describe your project briefly. You'll need a project description, which I call this your story. It tells your story of the project or activity being nominated. It has to be at least 2,000 words, and that will be an attachment. You will have to answer each judging criteria for this application as well, and we'll go into those here later as well. This information can come from the narrative. It can be separate of the narrative. I've had applications come in various ways where somebody will answer the judging criteria very specifically for that judging criteria. And then when they submit the description of the 2,000 words, it has more stuff. It can be inclusive of your judging criteria, but it also has more, the storytelling aspect of it. And then we require at least 4 or more supporting documents. And I strongly recommend that those be converted to all PDFs because those just translate better in the system. And I'm going to go ahead and answer the question that Chris put into the chat regarding the 3-year window. It says, does that apply to the specific program or project that won or to the specific companies that are recognized for the project? It would be, for example, like the elephant sanctuary that I gave an example of. For that one, it would be the entity. So the entity could not apply back into sustainable performance for 3 years, but they can apply in another category for another thing. It would also come down to the project per se, and a sustainable practice is a hard one for me to give an example because it's a all-encompassing category. So say it was materials management and it was the elephant sanctuary for a specific project. Well, you can't nominate that specific project again for 3 years in that category. And And then you further ask, does it extend to the parent company or the participating companies that were recognized for the project? I think that's going to come down to very specific examples. And Chris, I'm more than happy to take a call after later this week to get into those specifics if you need me to for that. This is a screenshot of the actual beginning of the application. At the beginning, it goes into all of the things that I just described specifically about what's needed, your eligibility, all the things that you're going to need. And then the next page, when you hit next, this is what it's going to look like. I would allow or allot at least a day or a half a day. If you have all of your stuff already together, it might take you, yes, it might take you 30 minutes to put it all into the application if you have all of your stuff together. If you've never been into the application and you don't know what it looks like or feels like, it might take you a little bit longer to do that. But there is a save and resume function on the application. So say you get to this page and you're like, yeah, I'm not ready for this. You can start it and hit save and resume, and it'll send you a link to come back into the application. And I will give examples of the supporting documentation when we get to that piece. But here you'll see that the application is going to ask for a nominator. And the way I describe the nominator is, say I want to nominate, and I'll just keep using the elephant sanctuary as an example because that's what's on my head. Say I want to nominate the elephant sanctuary. Well, I'm not tied to that project or that company or anything. I'm going to be the nominator. The next piece is actually the project contact. So I didn't screenshot it, but the next piece of this is the project contact. That would be where I put somebody from the elephant sanctuary down and their contact information and their name. I would like to note that some of the information in years past, I get very generic phone numbers. I don't get the direct number to the nominator or the direct number to the project contact. When it comes to me calling winners, I really need the direct number and the direct email to the nominator and to the project contact. So please make sure that you're giving me the number to the person that's listed on the application for the nominator and the project contact, because it does make it kind of hard for me to track somebody down to let them know that they've won. And that's the funnest, that is the funnest part of this whole thing, is me calling people and letting them know that they've won. So please make sure you give me the proper email and the proper phone number. The next piece of this is going to be the project name. This is what you might call whatever the project is. Recycling at Bridgestone Arena. It could be, whatever you call the project. It could be that it's an education and outreach category and you have a specific name of the education and outreach that you did. Put that in this piece, and then you will list the city or cities if it spans across, and then also the county or counties. And if it's a statewide, you can put the word statewide in there. There's not a drop down for you to pick a county. It leaves it open-ended. It's an open-ended field. So you can list multiple cities, multiple counties, or you can say statewide in this particular piece. For the project period, I get a lot of questions on this particular one. There are projects that span years. And I say that more so for like education and outreach, because it might be the same program that happens year after year after year. And you have, this year might be the year that you're like, man, we have a lot of really good data and it's time for us to submit that nomination. Well, if the project has been going for 20 years and it's one of those every year it happens type of project, then you can put the start date 20 years ago. If the project is like that and it's a continuous type of project, then I would put the completion date as 12/31/2025. If it actually has a beginning date and an end date, put those in there for me. So that way we can make sure that you meet the eligibility criteria for this particular section. And sometimes I might have to go in and just read the nomination and discern for myself if that fits in that project window as well, the period. The next piece is the judging criteria. These are the 8 different sections of judging criteria that you will have to respond to within the application. In the application, it describes each one of these judging criteria. So it'll tell you what we mean by results. It'll tell you what we mean by transferability and the type of question we want you to answer for this particular section. It is also on the web page that Caleb shared on the chat. It goes into those particular judging criteria, so you can look at those prior to pulling all of your information together. This is an example of what one of them looks like. The results one is the first one. The judges a few years back asked if we could break out the judging criteria for them. So we chose to force you, and I don't, the word force is not a good word, but we require you to actually break out those particular judging criteria areas. And all that does is really help the judges. Prior to, it was just part of your 2,000 word narrative. And sometimes the judges had a hard time pulling out what you might think is the results or what you might think is innovation or community burden. This takes all the guesswork out of it for the judges. Now, what you put in here might still be inclusive of some of the text in your 2,000 word narrative, and that is completely okay. It's kind of like when you're writing a grant application and you feel like you've answered the section 7 times in 7 different areas. Very similar, but we're not asking you to do it 7 times, just twice here in the judging criteria. And then if you want to include it as part of your narrative, you're more than welcome to put it in your 2,000 word narrative as well. So there'll be 8 different judging criteria that you have to answer. And then, like I said, if you duplicate some of your efforts into your narrative, your 2,000 word narrative, that is completely fine as well. The categories are as follows. We have agriculture and forestry, building green, clean air and transportation solutions. And for anybody that this is your first year ever seeing these, the clean air and transportation solutions, this is its 2nd year. It used to just be clean air. Last year, we added transportation solutions because we were getting some transportation types of nominations and didn't really have a category that it would fit in. So we fine-tuned the narrative or the description for clean air and included transportation in there as well. And you'll see that there's a small aspect of transportation stuff in energy and renewable resources, as well as building green when you read their descriptions as well. These are also all listed on the website, so you can look at the breakout for the descriptions of each one of these categories on the website also prior to submitting your application, so you can go there. I do want to mention the invitation only category at the end. This might go back to Chris's question of can a parent company or participating, what have you. Pursuit of excellence is an invitation only category. We go to the past 3 years, skipping the most current years. So 2025 winners will not be invited because they just won. So I go back to the 2024, 2023, and 2022 winners and ask them, hey, are you guys doing anything farther along with your projects to pursue excellence? And we do send that invitation out, and anybody on the call, I actually have already sent that invitation out for them to apply for this invitation only category. So that might help you, Chris, when it comes to the types of projects. If it's one that you've won before, you're going to be invited to come back and nominate, but not the most current winners. The 24, 23, and 22 winners are being invited this year. Let me go back one real quick. Lifetime achievement, I do want to talk about that. We've changed the description for this a few times over in the last 5-6 years. We are at 20 years now instead of having 25 years of part of the requirement to be nominated in the lifetime achievement category. So I just want to make note that it's 20 years or more of work to be eligible for the lifetime achievement nomination. I have this slide in here to kind of talk about the past winners and how I get a lot of questions from people about, well, how do you know I'm choosing the right category? The way I try to explain choosing the right category is when you're writing your narrative, write the narrative to fit the category. Now, if it's a project that could span multiple categories, that might be well suited in sustainable performance, because it's kind of like that one category that is, and I don't want to say a catch-all, but it does have like that overarching sustainable performance in it to where it might fit in that category. Write the nomination to fit the category. If you're having a hard time with that, write the nomination and submit it in the category you think it best fits. On the backside, when I get these nominations, I review every single one of the applications and nominations and make sure that it's in the category that it's best suited. So if you write it up in a way and I'm like, I'm not sure that this really fits in natural resources after I've read what you've submitted, but it would be great in sustainable performance. Well, then I'll move that nomination to the sustainable performance. Or I might read it and go, this really could fit in natural resources, and sustainable performance aren't a good example, but I might read it and go, yeah, this could be in natural resources, but it also could be in ag and forestry. So I'm going to take your nomination and actually submit it into 2 categories. So know that that's happening on the backside, that when I go through and read every single application, I make sure, 1, it's in the right category, and 2, if I think it's written to where it could fit, fit in multiple categories, I will put it in multiple categories. Now, you will only win in one category, and we've only had maybe 2 instances where a nomination was selected in 2 different categories as the number 1 winner, and we've had to go back to the judges and be like, okay, this is what happened. So that has only happened a few times in 20 years. So it doesn't happen that often, but that is something that's happening. Once you hit submit, I do review all of them. This is the section where you choose your category. It's a drop down. All of the categories are described. Like I said, those are also on the website, so you can kind of get a good idea of which category you're wanting to submit in. You pick your drop down, you hit next, and it will take you to this 2 to 4 sentence project description. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about this particular piece because I'm not sure I've ever explained why I ask for a 2 to 4 sentence. When I am preparing the document for our executive leadership team and the governor for their final vetted approval on the suggested winners that were chosen by the judges, I have to go in and pull what I think your project is and write a synopsis of 2 to 4 sentences. Who better to do that than you guys? I think if you guys could summarize what you're nominating in 2 to 4 sentences, that would help me tremendously. Sometimes it's just regurgitated from your nomination in the narrative. Sometimes you might be really good at just describing what you do in 2 to 4 sentences. And I want to look at yours before I go in and try to pull out what I think the project is in its entirety. So this particular piece is very helpful for me, for you to really take it and build out those 2 to 4 sentences to describe your project for me. You'll see at the next piece at the very bottom down here, I don't know if you can see my mouse. Right here it says drag and drop your files. This is where you're going to attach your 2,000 words narrative, your story. It can be any document type, and we'll get into the types of documents that you can attach. Like I said before, I think that PDFs compress down and save you space, and it also is a lot cleaner to attach. So I suggest attaching a PDF. If it's a Word, it also works as well. The supporting documents, to answer Joseph's question, this is where I wanted to spend a little bit more time because last year there were some nominations that came in and they figured out the system and tried to get one over on me, I guess is the best way to say it. We require 4 or more supporting documents. Of those examples could be pictures. If they are pictures, I strongly suggest you putting them in a PowerPoint, describing what the pictures are, and PDFing. I will get in again. The next slide talks about the types of attachments, but I do want to tell you our system does not allow PowerPoints, PPTs to be attached. So with any type of PowerPoint, it will need to be turned in as a PDF, or it needs to be in a different format. We cannot accept PPTs, PowerPoints. If you have photographs, 4 pictures do not constitute your 4 attachments or your 4 supporting nominations. If I receive a nominations and it's 4 pictures attached and you're saying that those are your supporting materials, I will respond back to you and ask you for your actual 4 or more supporting materials. I have had people create a Word document and it might have 15 links on it to news clippings and press releases and YouTube videos, and that's their media submission, and that'd be one document that they submit. A PowerPoint with all their pictures would be another one as a PDF. A spreadsheet with all of their data could be another supporting material. So there's many ways that you can compact your stuff into your 4 or more supporting nominations. But please note, 4 pictures do not constitute your supporting documents, and then attaching one of the same documents 4 times just to allow you to submit the application button at the end does not constitute your 4 supporting documents either. So the system will not let you hit the submit button when it's all said and done if you don't have 4 or more supporting documents. We do allow up to 8, and this is 8 total separate attachments, and your 2,000 word narrative is also a totally different attachment. This is what that page looks like. You would just drag your file over into supporting document 1, 2, 3, and then 4, and then there's 4 more underneath that to allow you to go up to 4. I'm sorry this text is really small. I should have bumped it out, but as you can see, we list all the file types that are allowed. PowerPoint is not accepted. It will need to be turned into a PDF. I strongly suggest most any of these be turned into PDFs unless it's like an MP3 or 4 file or something like that. Obviously, you can't turn those into a PDF. But the judges seem to have an easier time with attachments when they're PDFs than if they're all the other types of documents. So these are just things that I've learned over the years with listening to the judges and what have you. Like I have stated, similarly, there is a save and resume later button. You can always stop in the middle of your application and hit save. It'll ask for your email, and it'll send you a link for you to come back to the application whenever you want. When it's all said and done, there's a submit button in the bottom right. You'll hit submit form. If for some reason you get an error, most likely it's because you didn't answer one of the questions that has the red star next to it. That denotes a field that is required. That'll be on your category selection, all of the judging criteria sections, your 2,000 word narrative, and your 4 supporting documents. If you do 8 supporting documents, that's fine, but it will require at least 4. Each attachment, so that includes your 2,000 word narrative and your 8 different supporting documents, if you choose to have 8, can support 10 megabytes per attachment. That is another area that we have found problems when submitting, is that they're like, I don't understand why it's not taking it. And it might be that your file size for that one attachment is too large. So it has to be at least 10 megabytes or less per attachment. If you find errors, that happens. Sometimes things just don't work, and it might be something that I have to fix on the back end. Contact me, and you will get my contact number when we're done at the end here. The timeline, to give you an idea of where we're at with everything, we announced that the application period was open. We are accepting nominations for this particular 40th year until March 13th. I'll let you know that the last 2 years I have extended the deadline. The potential to extend the deadline is possible. So I still would like for you to have your nominations submitted by March 13th, but as I know and everybody else knows that works, life happens and stuff happens at work, and sometimes you just get put behind schedule. So feel free to reach out to me if you are in that type of predicament and we can work something out. But right now, the current deadline is March 13th. Again, the possibility of extending to the end of March is always there. We have done that the last 2 years, but I would use March 13th as your deadline for right now. Judging of all the applications will take place in April, late April. And to let you guys know, we pull panels of judges from across the state. It would be external stakeholders as well as a few internal stakeholders here in the department. So my office nor myself judges these. We actually pull in people externally to look at all of the nominations and help pick the first, second, I say first, second, third, the suggested first, second, and third, because if for some reason somebody came back with a compliance issue, we would go down to the second place suggested winner of the judges. So just to kind of let you know how that works. Once the judges have done their selection and we have vetted in the nominations through our compliance divisions, we then submit the suggested winners to be vetted through our department executive leadership team, as well as the governor's office. So there's 3 steps to vetting a winner. We do our internal compliance, then our executive team reviews them, and then from there, the governor's office also reviews them. Winners will be contacted this summer, hopefully before the 4th of July. That's my goal this year, as long as all the vetting and approvals take place in a timely manner. And then we will celebrate all the award winners that are selected on September 14th. So if you think you have a great nomination, hold that calendar, because you might be selected as a winner. And that's the day that we're going to be honoring all of the award winners at the 40th anniversary. This is my contact information. I would like to open up the floor to anybody that might have questions. Again, this is my contact information. You can call me, email me, text me. That number does take text. So any mechanism you can think of. Caleb, have you had any questions come in?
Let's see. I think that you did a pretty good job answering all the questions as they came in. I'm just going back through. We had Chris asking about the 3-year window, and you answered that. Supporting documents, you handled that. There's one that just came in. Is work performed for the Department of Energy as a contractor eligible?
Yes. Because that work is done in the state of Tennessee. So it doesn't matter the entity, as long as the work is a Tennessee project, the entity can be anybody.
See, and also if you send those questions in the chat, but if you would actually rather ask them yourself, you can do the little hand raising emoji, and I can unmute you if you'd rather. If you feel like that would be a clearer way for you to ask a question. Here's another one that just came in. Could you clarify the timeline requirements? For instance, if a built project was installed, does it need to have been installed in the last 2 years or at least 2 years ago? And then this is for performance metrics to have been measured.
If the project was installed, it needs to have been installed and completed in the last 2 years, not 4 years ago, and you're just now putting all the data together. The largest portion of the project needs to be completed in the last 2 years. And I think that's the best way to say that. So you could have a project that's spanning 5 years, but the bulk of the work happened in the last 2 years and completed.
Yeah, Cameron said thanks. And if we didn't answer that all the way for you, Cameron, I'm happy to unmute you and you can ask the questions. You just let me know if you want to do that. Another one did just come in from Patrick. He says, if projects are done for the DOE under CERCLA, are they ineligible?
I don't know. Can you tell me what CERCLA is? Because I don't think I know what that is. So if while you type that, or if you want to come off mute and explain that, because I don't want to answer it not knowing what that is.
Let's see, and I can.
Let me answer Devin's question. Devin asked, for the judges, would total diverted material be weighed against diversion percentage in an application? What about for a sustainable practice nomination that's looking at multiple different projects with a different diversion metric? As it relates to sustainable practices nomination, that is a category that it does have a lot of different types of metrics. I would say if you talk about it in the nomination, give the metric associated, because judges most likely have never seen or heard of your project. So think of it like it's a blind date. You're going in, and I say blind date, that's a bad example. But say you're going into it blindly. I don't know about your projects. So the more information you can give to the judges, the better. So for that particular piece, definitely give as much information as possible. And as it relates to the weight against diversion percentage in an application, I think that really comes down to how you present the material. Not knowing the project, it's kind of hard to answer that question, but I think it comes down to how you're going to present it to the judges would really come down to that particular answer. So, Mr. Butler, to answer your question about lifetime achievement, we have gone in years past, we've done two different types of categories for lifetime achievement. We've done professional and we've done volunteerism. And it just comes down to that we have probably about 4 to 7 or 8 nominations that get submitted every year. And it got to where we wanted to take that professional and volunteerism out. I don't want to discount anybody that's working professionally in that field and that's all they're doing, but I can tell you that when the judges are looking at lifetime achievement nominations, they're looking at what was their work, but what did they do beyond that work? Not just the work that they did to keep things going as it relates to the environment and the good deeds that is around that. It's really what is it that they went beyond their profession to do. And of course, volunteerism side is super easy because they're doing it as a volunteer. So those are a little easier to write. So that's the Lifetime Achievement Award. Patrick, I might have to have a separate conversation with you, or I might need to dig in and ask a few people about that particular piece because I don't know if I know that answer and I don't want to give you the wrong information. So if you would send Caleb privately your email so I can get this information for you because I don't know this answer and I don't want to give you the wrong answer. So if you wouldn't mind dropping that email in for him. Cameron, could you give an example of who the judges typically are? Typically, we have external stakeholders, and I say that we pull regionally. So we'll pull, for instance, last year we had somebody that was, well, let me talk internally. We had a couple internal people that are not in our office. One was from the Division of Solid Waste, and we've had in the past a few people from other air pollution control. We'll have a judge from there. We externally have pulled in some people from Clean Cities. We've had some sustainability coordinators from universities. We've had actual professors or doctors from universities. We had a professor from Fisk University 1 year. So we have a varied judging judges across, we do regionally, so we'll pull regional judges, and then we make sure that we pull equal internal and external stakeholders. So, and when I say internal, that doesn't mean it could just be our department. Those could be internal where we're pulling from other departments. So I might pull somebody over from the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse if I know that they have a varied background that could judge these types of nominations. Tips to write the narrative. Again, I really think that you guys need to look at it like these judges have never heard of your project. They probably won't have time to go out and Google it. So any and all the information that you think you need to tell somebody about your project, put in the nomination. The When it's lackluster or not full of information, they end up coming back during the judging process and asking a lot of follow-up questions. And if I don't know about your project, then I can't even fill in the gaps for them. So then it's kind of like, well, they didn't give us the information, so we're going to move on to the next nomination. So I think that just really tell the story is the best advice I can give you, because they most likely have never heard of your project, especially if it's a judge in West Tennessee and you're in East Tennessee. They probably have never heard of what you're doing. So
Okay.
more photos versus text. I think a good mix. Pictures tell 1,000 words. That's always something that's always said, but that should be one supporting document. Pictures should be one supporting document. I've gotten to where some people have gotten real good about like putting it into a YouTube video and kind of telling their story that way. And that YouTube video is their support, one of their supporting documents. I do think text is good if it supports your narrative. I also think that if it's poundage or greenhouse gas reduction or those types of things, more data is great to support your nomination. So think about your type of project as well. If your project is data driven and data heavy, so put the data in for support, because they're going to go, well, where did they get all these words from? I don't like, what does this mean? I don't understand. I don't have the supporting background to support that they said they saved 100,000 CO2 or, whatever it might be. So make sure you put that in the nomination. Mr. Green, for previous winners, if we're going for a Sustainable Practices Award this year, would we be able to include that we won a previous award? Yeah, I think that's completely okay to talk about what you won and what category you won in the past. I think that that's just touting some of the things that you already done. So I think that that is completely allowed.
Kathy, I did want to add to the question before, Devin, talking about like what are they looking for, and so I've been, I I've been in our office for about 8.5 years, and each year I write 2 to 3 articles, nominations for these awards, just because of the work that I do. All the different collaboration that I have throughout the state. I see these projects that I feel should be nominated, and so I go and do 2 to 3 nominations per year. And I'll be honest, I last year was the first year that one of my nominations actually won, and so and I will say that I did add more of a storytelling aspect to it. I really leaned into like a narrative, not just the facts, but like telling the story and the different pieces that I saw outside looking in, of course working with the people that actually were doing the project. But and then also, I know not everybody has access to this, but I have a drone, and I actually went out to where the project was and flew the drone up and took some cool videos, and that was one of my supporting documents, was these drone pictures and this video, and I put it into a PDF. And I don't know if that's what won it for me, but these judges are going to be looking through a lot of applications and reading a lot. And so if you make your nomination interesting to look at and fun to read, and those might not be the proper terms, but you get what I'm saying. Like, that's going to be something that sticks out to the judges and puts them in their top three to go back and discuss with the other judges, in my opinion.
And do you think, Caleb, us breaking out the judging criteria helped you really separate the storytelling and the narrative and then kind of putting the not fun stuff in the judging criteria? Do you think that that was easier for you to be able to tell that story side in the narrative?
Right. I think that the narrative can be that story, and then with it being broken out, that's where you put the facts, and you answer those questions. So yeah, it at first it made me feel like it was a little bit more writing, and but once again, when we did that, that was when the year that my nomination won. So I think that it was a little bit more work on my part, but I think that that's what assisted in um, you know, standing out.
Right. Do you see any hands raised or have any other questions that were sent to just you?
Uh, Patrick does have his hand raised. I don't know if he still wants me to, but I'll unmute you real quick, Patrick. And oh nope, he put it down. So I think he got all of his questions answered. But I did get that your email and your number, Patrick, and I sent that over to Kathy. So she'll be reaching out.
Again, these two emails are emails, obviously my email I check daily. The Governor's Awards one, right now during this process, I probably go in once a week, but as we get closer to the end, I'll go in more often. I would just suggest if you have a question, just send it to both emails. Copy me on both emails or call me at that phone number or text me. I answer to any and all of those manners of communication. So I am around. I'm not taking any vacation until after the application period is done. So I don't have any time off between now and then. So I am all yours if you guys have questions or need help or you get into it and you just can't get it to work or that happens. Feel free to just reach out and I can hopefully fix whatever it is. And Patrick, I'll get that answer for you and follow up privately with you.
I'm not seeing.
If there isn't any other questions, I'm gonna let Caleb close it up.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. I think that we started doing this a couple years ago, and I think that this is super helpful. Just it allows us to see questions that people might have that we might not know, and so it helps us. And I'm not going to speak for the people that making the nominations, but I feel like it is a very helpful tool for filling out these nominations and making sure you're doing it the right way. So, like I said, once this is over, you're automatically going to be sent to our Governor's Environmental Stewardship Award webpage. If you've already been there, you don't need to see it. Of course, just exit out. But if you haven't been there, go through. You can see all the different nomination categories and all the different things that Kathy spoke about today. Over the next couple days, well, probably early next week, the recording of this will be posted to our YouTube channel, and then also will be housed on that Governor's Environmental Stewardship Awards webpage that you are going to be sent to right after this. So feel free to use that as a tool as you're building. And then also, like Kathy said, reach out to her, reach out to me. Everyone in our office is always working on nominations. So if you need some help, we're more than happy to help you build that out and sort of be a champion for you for the great projects that you've got going on. So with that being said, if there's no more questions, we'll give you guys three minutes back to your day, and good luck with those nominations.
Good luck. Thank you guys.